And breaking news, Nvidia's earnings are now out. So we will go through them in just a moment, facing a high stakes moment with this latest quarterly results as we were talking about. Let's get to the numbers. So when it comes to fourth quarter results, revenue was up 73% year over year to $68.1 billion. That beats estimates of $65.9 billion. Data center revenue at $62.3 billion, so up 75% year over year, and also beating estimates there. Adjusted gross margin is at 75.2%. R&D expenses, $5.5 billion. That's a 48% increase year over year. And that also beat estimates. Adjusted EPS is $1.62. When it comes to looking forward at the first quarter forecast, Nvidia is seeing revenue at $76.4 billion to $79.5 billion. So that's up from estimates, which were $72 billion. And we're going to bring in Ivana Delevska again, founder and chief investment officer at Spear Invest, who has been waiting by patiently for these results to come out. It's good to have you once again. Thanks so much for waiting. I'm wondering what you make of what we're seeing now that Nvidia has actually released its results, beating most estimates. So this is maybe kind of the blowout earnings report that a lot of analysts were expecting.
Well, Lindsay, one thing I would add to what you just said is basically the quarter was a beat in terms of the reported numbers, a bit on the guided numbers, but even more importantly, the numbers they're guiding to, they don't seem to be including a lot of China revenues in them. And analysts had expected something along the lines of $3 billion. So this is even a bigger beat than what it seems on paper if you really strip out China from the numbers, because that could be incremental depending on how the licenses go. So we'll look to hear more details on that on the call. But basically, if it's really just the US that's delivering $78 billion in the next quarter, that would be a pretty positive surprise.
Okay, that's a good point. Thanks for adding that. Nvidia's revenue was expected to jump 68%. It's up 73% year over year. So that's one of the big beats that we're talking about here. And I know I take your point, like we'll have to wait for the earnings call to get more details. But I guess what does that tell you about Nvidia's performance and like the outlook as well for the year ahead?
I mean, I think it's clear that things are on track. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. The question here is how much of a beat is it, right? Is it a $5 billion beat or a $3 billion beat for the quarterly numbers themselves? I think if you look out long term, I think the stock is trading at pretty cheap valuation here. So while in the past, this used to be one of our aggressive holdings when we were expecting over 100% return. Here, we think it's going to be more of a compounder, but it's still going to deliver very significant risk reward, right? So we think the downside here is pretty limited. You've seen it trading at this range. So I think it's really like based on how much do they beat each quarter, that's going to determine at what rate will they be compounding.
I know you're just going over the numbers briefly since they came out as well, but was there anything that was surprising to you at all that you're seeing in this report, or is it kind of on par with most expectations?
I would say, apart from the China comment, I would say it's on par with expectations. It's a little bit better beat, I would say, but definitely not a blowout that would take the stock up 10%. But given how muted expectations were and how worried people are about the AI trade, I think this should provide some comfort for investors.
You mentioned that there's not a lot of context in terms of China in this latest quarter. We know that Nvidia has sold 0 H200 chips to China this quarter. They're expected to start selling in Q1. So I'm wondering, does that signal anything about the company right now or the direction they're going in, or is that just more data we're going to have to wait for?
I think it's more data that we're going to have to wait for, but it's clearly upside from where estimates are today. So we are not assuming a lot of China revenues. I know the street was assuming some revenues here for the guide. So that could come basically as incremental upside. We're really excited about the non-China market with these hyperscalers just constantly updating their CapEx numbers higher. And also, if you look at their competitors, I mean, really, there is very limited competition, even after 3 years into this cycle, right? So you're seeing AMD, they're making some strides, but they really, every time they do a big deal, they need to give up a piece of their company, right? And Google is also very well positioned, but they're really playing in that niche of recommenders. So it's still, even to our surprise, as somebody that is positive on the stock, we would have expected at least a little bit of competition here, and it doesn't seem like there is really any concern on market share.
Very interesting stuff. Okay, we will leave it there. Ivana Delevska, founder and chief investment officer at Spear Invest. Appreciate your time, and thanks for sticking around to wait for those reports to come out. We appreciate it.